this next question. I mean, if you don't want to answer it, that's fine, Judge Valdez.
As long as I'm not under oath, we'll be okay.
There was no Bible. There was R2D2 that you swore on.
It's a very controversial question. It's very controversial, but I'm pretty sure everyone wants to know. What is your opinion or belief about the recent UAP or UFO sightings that have been going on?
You sound like my wife. She's like my wife is saying, I've told you for years, I'm gonna tell you the two cheesiest places in the United States are Roswell, New Mexico, and the burning of the witches in Salem. I've been to both places.
We have Judge Sergio Valdez here with us today. You're here on the podcast. What's going on? What's new?
Everybody's waiting for the courthouse to open up. Everybody's wondering when it's going to open up.
Don't ask me any questions.
They did a good job putting the courthouse together. The courtrooms are great. The way they've designed it is great. They just can't finish it up. I don't know what the problem is, but everybody's waiting to get in there. It's a great facility once it gets up and running.
What are the rumors as far as why they can't get it?
You've heard them all, from it sinking to...
It's sinking? I haven't heard that one.
That's the latest one. They're saying it's a little bit of roof problems, a little bit of drainage, the typical construction stuff that you hear everywhere else. And so I guess they're trying to clear through that and, let the litigation begin. Let us move in.
Is there a target date for when we're moving in?
Richard Cortez put out a letter, I guess, or a statement about a few weeks ago, said it's about 3 to 6 months away. So if you believe that, we should be in there December into January. Our commissioners have done a good job of working diligently. It's just a big project.
Yeah.
And stuff like that happens, and they just got to work through it,
Yeah.
And the sooner we get in there, the sooner they'll tear down the old courthouse and we'll start doing business there. It's a much needed place. You guys know that how the old courthouse is,
Yeah.
They've gotten permission from the Historical Society to tear down the old courthouse, and so I think everybody's ready to move in.
I am thrilled to have Judge Valdez here because this isn't the only big show that you've been on. You've also been on CNN, right?
I've been on CNN. I've been on Anderson Cooper. TLC has a documentary about one of my last cases that I defended, and so I've been around a little bit.
And before becoming a county court judge, you were also one of the Hidalgo County's one of our good trial lawyers. You've tried a bunch of cases, civil, criminal.
I'm going to tell you that if you look at the history of death penalty cases, the last 4 death penalty cases that were tried here in this county were defended by me, and they were all defended successfully. Everybody thought they were going to be death penalty cases. They were all life sentences, all of them, including the lady who was called a half-ton killer, lady who weighed over 1,000 pounds. They thought she'd killed her nephew. She was vindicated. She was acquitted. Case was dismissed. You can see the whole documentary. It's a TLC documentary, Half-Ton Killer.
Okay.
Tell us. Can you tell us a little bit about that case? I mean, I'm sure you have. That's why you were on CNN and Anderson Cooper, and had that documentary, right?
Yeah, that's what it was about.
That's what it was about.
Yeah. They called us early on in that case. The way it works is there's probably 4 or 5 individuals qualified back in the day to defend death penalty. You've got to get certified by the state of Texas and the 5th Administrative Region.
What year was that, Judge?
Man, 10 years ago.
10 years, okay.
I mean, I've been on the bench 10 years, so do the math backwards, like 10, 12 years.
Okay.
So, it's 12 years ago when I was trying those last few cases. The judges call you, they trust you, because they don't want to have to pay, they don't want to have the county to pay twice. You do it once, it comes back on appeal, they have to try it again, and the county just spends a lot of money if it's not done right the first time. So I was fortunate enough in that case. I don't know if it was, I think it was Ricardo Rodriguez, our district attorney, who just left office, was a district court judge. And I think he's the one that called me and said, well, you help the county and represent this lady. And I said, certainly, so I took on that job of representing that lady. And at that time, she weighed over 1,000 pounds and she couldn't come to court. It was just a very, very dynamic case. Very fun now that in retrospect. It was stressful during the time, but.
So what were the allegations there, Judge? Was she in bed with her young nephew or something, and she rolled over on him, or how did that work?
Yeah, that's what they were trying to say. She weighed 1,000 pounds, sat at the bed, and she probably, took up most of a king-size bed, and there's no way she could have rolled over. And she was basically covering up for her sister. If you watch the documentary, she was basically covering up for her sister, and and just taking the rap because she was dying anyway. And so she figured, I'm dying, I'm gonna die, let me take the rap and let me just, So half the battle was not defending her, half the battle was getting her to come forward with the truth and saying she wasn't guilty. Most clients say, I'm not guilty when they are. This one was saying I'm guilty when she wasn't. Yeah, this was quite the opposite. So.
And so you were fighting your own client.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was a task.
Yeah,
it was a task.
And what shocks me though, like Sonny, is I thought you were retained on that case. You were actually court appointed.
I was court appointed. That's why I said at the time it was Judge Ricardo Rodriguez from the 92nd District Court who called me
and you've probably seen it. Like most people are like, if I get a court appointed lawyer, they're gonna plea me out and stuff like that. And generally, court appointed lawyers generally have a bad reputation by the general public.
As much as you don't want to say it, there are still some court-appointed people who do court-appointed work. Let's just not call them court-appointed attorneys, but that do work and kind of have that philosophy. They want to check the box, enter the plea, get their voucher, and move on. And it's just not fair to our constituents, the defendants, to the system. But they exist. There's bad apples like in any profession.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it as a court-appointed lawyer. Your client says, "Plea me out." And you're like, okay, I'm court appointed. I submit my voucher, over and done with.
The client's telling me I did it.
Right?
Get your check, submit the bill, get paid, and move on. Close on to the next file.
I mean, the client's telling me I did it. Well, hell.
So, like, what motivated you? Like, what made you say, like, no, this isn't right?
It just didn't seem right when she was when you visited, when you got to know her. She just didn't seem like that person, and there was just no way that she rolled over on because she couldn't move. She sat there. She just couldn't.
What was the charge, Judge? It
was capital murder, child under the age of 6.
Oh, okay, child under.
It was killing a child under the age of 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Kill a fireman or a policeman in the line of duty, 2 or more people, or a child under the age of 6.
I was going to say because
they're going to seek the needle.
The intent isn't there, but
yeah, child under the age of 6. Yeah, they can pursue the needle.
And I don't know about you, Sonny, but I remember when I was a prosecutor, and whenever I saw Sergio Valdez like on a file, you always knew it wasn't going to be an easy plea.
It's going to be a pain in the ass.
That's right.
That's okay. That's right.
But when I went to law school, I walked in and I'm like, these are people from very wealthy families, and they're their kids, and most lawyers don't come from very poor backgrounds. They come from middle class. And
I do.
Can you tell us?
I certainly don't come from a wealthy family. I have 7 brothers and sisters. Half of us are born in Oregon. Half of us are born in Texas. We're migrant farm workers. And so it just depended on where you were at when the birth came. I was born in Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
I have a sister who's born in Portland, Oregon. I have brothers who are born here in Texas. And so there's 7 of us, like 4 of us are from Texas, 3 of us are from Oregon. It just depends on where we're at. Mm-hmm. And finally we moved down and we stayed in Progreso. Don't hold that against me, but and we were migrant farm workers. So every summer we'd go up to Michigan, Minnesota. We'd go up to West Texas. We'd pick cucumbers, pickles, strawberries, berries, go-ho cotton in West Texas. And so that was my life growing up in Progreso. And I'll tell you what, growing up for spring break, I did not go to the island. We clipped onions on 10/15, and in Christmas break, we picked broccoli in the freaking cold weather. And so we were migrant farm workers year round. On the weekends, we didn't go to the island. We went to the fields and worked. I'll forever remember 2 people. My grandmother, who passed away like 4 years ago, worked with us. The bus used to pick us up at her house like at 5 in the morning. And there was a bus that picked up the people. And if you didn't get on the bus, you rode on the back of the truck. And so you were lucky to be on the bus because it was cold. Yeah. And if you got on the bus, you made it. If you were late, got up late, you got on the back of the truck. And then I had an aunt of mine who also worked with us in the fields. And those were the 2 hardest working ladies. And let me just tell you something about women in general. And you don't realize this till later in life. We'd go up north to Michigan and work. And we didn't have an alarm clock. You'd wake up to the sound of, and you say, well, what is that? Well, that's your mom and your sisters making tortillas in the morning. And so, by the time that sound woke you up, they'd been up already. They'd already been making breakfast. They'd already been making food to take to the fields. And you don't think about this, but then you come home, right? And what happens after everybody gets home? They go ahead and cook dinner. So the women are the hardest working. They get up before we go work in the fields. They go work in the fields with you. We come back and they still got to cook dinner.
Right.
And so, man, my heart goes out to all these hard working women, not only in the fields, but everywhere, that get up before and go to bed afterwards. I mean, they take care of all of us. So yeah, that's.
How did this individual with a migrant background coming from nothing, how does he become a county court at law judge?
It was kind of interesting. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college and obtained a bachelor's degree. Graduated from high school, and I had a motorcycle going to the beach every weekend. Just kind of like every other teenager. Had a motorcycle accident, fractured my back. T6 and T7 were fractured, and I was probably bedridden for about 4 or 5 months. It took me about a year before I was up and running again. So I said, I'm going to go to college, and I just went to college, just no plan, no idea. I had joined the National Guard when I was in high school, and so I then joined the ROTC program when I was was then Pan American. It's now UT RGV. It became Pan American. I graduated from UT Pan American, and now it's UT RGV. I got my commission as a second lieutenant there, and then just decided to apply to law school. I didn't know anything about applying to law school. I applied to 2 law schools. I applied to Texas Tech because I used to go hoe cotton up in Lubbock. I'm familiar with the area, right? Yeah. And I applied to Oregon because that's where I was born, right? Yeah. Oregon said no. Texas Tech said yes, and so there I go. What do I know, right? Yeah. I'm at Texas Tech going to law school. A funny story about law school is after my first year, I wanted to quit so bad. I was doing well, but I wanted to quit so bad. I was an infantry officer because I'd received my commission, and I was a detachment commander up in the area. My unit is getting deployed during Desert Storm. And so they tell me, you've got to go to your officer basic course when you become an infantry officer. So I was heading back to Fort Benning, Georgia after my first year of law school. And I was going to quit law school. I'd already made up my mind, I'm quitting, I'm not coming back. This sucks, right? So I'm at Fort Benning from July to December. And man, we're spending 2-3 weeks at a time out in the field, doing field training exercises. About October, November, when it gets real cold, I said, you know what, I'm going back to law school. Because this being in the field is no good. So I came back and graduated from law school and came back home and started my career as an attorney. So.
But you were also a JAG, right, Judge?
Yes. I started off as an enlisted soldier, went to Fort Benning, Georgia for my basic training, came back. Then when I joined the ROTC program at Pan American, I got my commission, and I was an infantry officer during my law school years. And then when I finished law school, I became a JAG officer. So basically, the last 10 years of my service, we're doing court martials. So instead of going to the field, we'd go to either Fort Sam in Houston, or we'd go to Fort Hood, or different areas across the state of Texas. And I was a criminal defense attorney, so I'd represent all the soldiers in court martials and other administrative proceedings.
And what made you want to come back here? Because the Rio Grande Valley is a great place to export talent. A lot of people grow up here, become educated, and they leave. What made you want to come back?
I didn't know any better. I had 2 job offers. When I was in law school, I clerked with Oscar Alvarez in the summers, and he'd help me out, and I'd do research for him while I was in law school. I had 2 job offers when I finished law school. One was with Exxon in Houston. Hell, I didn't have, because I did rather well in law school. Top 10%, did well. But I didn't have the resources to move to Houston. It was a big corporate firm. I was intimidated because I'd never been out, and I was like, man, I didn't have any money for suits. I didn't have any money to get an apartment. I didn't have any money to move over there. What am I going to do? Yeah. So the safe thing for me to do, it was a blessing, was to move back home, where I was familiar with the area and I had a little bit of support. So those were my 2 opportunities when I finished law school. I came back home and here I am today, thank God.
Do you remember what your first case was?
I'll tell you, I remember 2 cases. The first one was my first guy that I represented who went to prison. I couldn't sleep at night because I didn't know if I'd done everything that I should have done. And you see him going to prison, and man, that's my fault. I mean, so you realize the gravity of what you're doing. You're an attorney. People's lives are in your hands. You're either going to do your job well and they're going to get justice, or you're going to do your job poorly. And people are going to go to jail for the wrong reason, even though they shouldn't go to jail. And I remember that individual. And I remember him because my wife was working at Wilson Elementary as an elementary school teacher. And that individual, the lady who he had beat up, they had a child together. That child was my wife's student. And so it hit home. It hit home, and I remember that case clearly. He was out on probation, and during the time he was out on probation, he struck the lady with an object in the head several times, and he was going up for aggravated assault and the revocation. So I remember that's that stays with you forever, and you realize the gravity of. We've got a lot of responsibility in the legal profession. You have people's lives in your hands, and so yeah. Remember that one clearly. You
had a very good practice. Everyone spoke well of you. You were thriving. What made you want to say, you know what, I'm going to run for judge?
You can help so many people being an attorney. You've got, we all have our files in our cabinet. We all have our personal injury files, our criminal files, family law files, miscellaneous files, but you've got a limited amount of people you're helping. If you get on the bench, you have thousands of people that come before you. And you have the opportunity to do the right thing, help the people that need to be helped, and make the right decision. And so it's just, if you're helping people, it's just an opportunity to help that many more people, And I've taken it beyond that. I've got a bunch of other duties that I do in addition to just being the judge, with indigent defense, with the bail bond board, as presiding judge. I just do a lot of different things in addition, run the DWI court, but it's an opportunity to help that many more people do the right thing. And sometimes it's sad, it's true, but sometimes you get clients, defendants who come in there with their attorneys who are not prepared, and if you don't intervene, they're not going to get the justice they deserve. And you sometimes have to kind of, intervene and make sure that the right thing happens for that individual.
Were you the first lawyer in your family?
I was the first one in my whole entire family to get a bachelor's degree, across the board.
What did your dad tell you, or how did he feel when you became an attorney?
It was a big event because I'll remember Oscar, the guy that I worked for, and I'm getting a little emotional because my dad passed away.
Sorry.
Wasn't able to see me become a judge. But he was proud. So if you know anything about undergrad, you come from a migrant farm working family, you're going to get all sorts of grants. So undergrad was free.
Okay.
But I went to law school the first year, and I checked into the registrar's office, and she goes, "Where's your $10,000 check for tuition?"
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm saying, $10,000. Yeah.
Was it $10,000 when you went to law school?
My whole student loan was $30,000
Okay.
for 3 years, so.
Oh, for 3 years, right?
Yeah, for 3 years for $30,000.
Right.
So I forget what the amount of tuition for the first semester was, but she says, "Where's your check?" And I said, okay, financial aid's coming. She goes, "No, if it's not here, you can't go to class." So hold on, the check's in the mail. And so I was able to get loans through the 3 years. I worked at Kmart in undergrad. So when I started law school at Texas Tech, they said nobody works the first year. Well, the law school at Texas Tech is on the north side of town. Kmart's on the south side of town. So I went and worked at Kmart on the south side of town so that nobody would know. And then I was in the guard, so I'd drill 1 week in a month and make another $800. And with the money that I got from loans, I made it. So yeah. And so I worked at Kmart the first year to just make ends meet.
And one of the hardest things to do in this profession, Judge Valdez, or just in life, very hard, no matter how much money you have, in the bank, people are always measured by this one thing. How do you raise good children? And can you raise successful children? Which is very, very difficult.
If you have a good spouse, that's a big help.
And I heard that your daughter, is she in medical school, or?
My daughter, we have one child. Her name's Christina. She is a product of the McAllen School District. And she was valedictorian at Memorial High School. Takes after her mom, not after me, I guess. Wow. She got into a program which is unfortunately come to an end, but she was able to get in while it existed. It's the RGV Baylor Medical School program, so that if they select, I think in her cohort was only 6 students. They dwindle it down to about 30. And while you're in high school in your senior year, they interview 30 students and they pick 6 from those. And every one of them are qualified. And we went to the interview while she was in high school at Baylor Medical School. There was probably 80% of them were doctors with their children there, all of them from either IDEA or SciTech or MedHigh, all these dynamic STPA. But she got selected to be one of those students. So instead of going to Columbia, Stanford, Rice, all the schools she's gotten into, she stayed here at UT RGV into this program and had automatic admission into medical school. And so she just completed her first year of medical school. She just started her second year this past week, and so she's doing very well. But it takes a team. It takes a team at home. It takes good support structure, but it can be done.
But just that story, though, like coming all the way back from working to the fields to becoming a lawyer, and now you have a daughter that's going to go on and become a doctor. That's like the American dream.
Oh, it is.
That is, wow.
Well, that tells you education is the answer. That tells you that education is the answer, and if you can get there, and much like me, she got a full ride in undergrad, not because we were indigent, but because of her academics. And we'll pick up the tab. We'll pick up the tab. You know what it's like. We'll pick up the tab in medical school, and hopefully she'll be a successful doctor. She plans to stay in Houston, hopefully do her residency there and stay a couple of years there, then come back home and take care of us or something, I guess.
And I have a friend that when I graduated, like from law school, we had like a small party, and he came up to me and he gave me like a big hug, and he was getting emotional and he started crying. I go, what's the big deal? I'm a lawyer now. He goes, you don't understand. Like, you're one of us. Like, you're one of the common people who don't come from a rich background. And now you're in this position that most poor people or people who struggle aren't from. And I think it's a good feeling that knowing that Judge Valdez is like, you're one of us. You're one of those people that just fought their way. No one gave you anything. And that's awesome. That is really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
That is, and as a county court judge, I think that's why you're so demanding, because you expect people to work. You
show up on time, be prepared. I mean, I don't think that asking people to do their job
is unreasonable.
That's
what. Whenever someone complains about a tough judge, the answer I give them is, you're upset because the judge wants you to be prepared for the case that you got hired on?
Know a little bit about your client. Know a little bit about the facts of know a little bit about what you're doing there. It's not asking for, and show up on time. It's not asking for a whole lot, I don't think.
And Sonny was like, we were cheering in our offices, Judge Valdez, when COVID was going on, and it was like two years. No one was having jury trials. Nothing was going on. It seems like the courts kind of weren't having jury trials, at least on civil cases. They were doing their criminal case docket, but no one was doing civil jury trials. And I think you were the first one to say, no, we're getting back to it, right?
We were the first ones to come back live. We were the first ones to do a jury trial. And we were the first ones to expect everybody to come back and work, because it just gotten lackadaisical, where people were just at home in T-shirts and just losing the respect for the whole process.
I'm still going to work in a T-shirt. I haven't lost that part of it. But I put on a suit when I had to go back to court for the first time. My wife hadn't seen me in a suit in like a year and a half, and she goes, "You look like a Cole, like you're modeling for Kohl's or something."
Should have told her, no, it's Ross.
It's Ross.
Yeah, so we were the first ones to just bring it back, and it needed to be done. A lot of people weren't happy with it, but because they got used to being at home. But it just, it's normalcy. We needed to get back to work, and with the number of people we had overcrowding in the jail, it just needed to happen to help everybody get back to work.
Yeah. Did you get like any type of like pushback or anything?
We got a lot of pushback. We get pushback because we start on time. We get pushback because we expect you to be prepared. And we certainly got pushback because people wanted to continue, like Sonny, to be at home in their T-shirt. Flexing.
I'm in my office in my T-shirt.
Okay.
Not at home. I actually never stayed at home. I just locked myself when lockdown happened. I just locked myself in my office and sent the staff home. Let them work from home. But there's kids at my house.
Get away from the house and get a break.
There's kids at my house, so I just locked myself in my office and kept working.
You know that there's social media. Social media used to be a place no one like really took serious, right? But now people get a lot of their like information from like social media and stuff like that. And people tend to criticize like government officials, like generally. They just like, Hidalgo County is corrupt. It's full of corruption. And then we had Judge Rudy Delgado, who got arrested, indicted, and convicted. And people kind of have like this, they're quick to label government officials corrupt. Very quick. Why do you think like people have that view? Like, why is it so rampant?
And I don't know that it's. I don't know that I agree it's rampant. I agree that the criticism is out there, and I agree that attorneys, judges, teachers, administrators, business people, all have bad apples in their group. And you know, so when you talk about whether it's the judicial system, whether it's the education system, whether it's the Paxton legislative body up in Austin, you know, I mean, it exists everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. It's everywhere.
Exactly. It's not isolated to the government employees. It happens in private practice. It happens in private companies. It happens everywhere because there are bad people everywhere. And I think to paint everybody with a broad brush is just, it's ignorant. It's ignorant to make statements, general statements about corruption. It's ignorant to say that a certain group of people are corrupt, unless you're talking about felons in prison, okay? But otherwise, I think it's just ignorant for anybody to go on a post, on a rant, on a rampage, and just criticize in general without any substance. And the sad thing is that these ignorant people aren't held accountable. And it's hard to hold them accountable because some of them are anonymous.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and you know, and there's just no accountability for their actions now. The only accountability that comes is they don't get the traction that they desire. They don't get the response, and they certainly don't get the following that they want. But I think that people who, especially in today's environment, you have a lot of young lawyers, whatever class you're coming from, whatever group of workers you are, you have a lot of people living off of social media, and the response is not really accurate, you know, as to what society is. You know, if you live on social media, if you think that society is what's on social media, you're wrong. You're mistaken. You know, that's not what society is. And it's unfortunate that we have a lot of, I'm going to say ignorant people posting negative stuff on social media about corruption, because that's all it is. It's ignorance about being educated, ignorance about where they're getting their information, ignorance about knowing how things are. It's just ignorant. I don't know how else you combat ignorance, because you can't.
Especially on social media, it's so easy to hit that share button.
Yeah.
Hey, that looks legit. Or, I don't know. I mean, legit might not be.
Sergio Valdez is an alien.
Yeah, just share. Boom.
Somebody said you can't fix stupid. What do you know? That's like a saying that's on a T-shirt, right? You can't fix stupid. So what do you do with that? You know, you just let it go. You know, because you're not gonna combat ignorance. You know, you just can't.
Okay.
Especially with like how polarized our politics are right now, and the misinformation. Take politics out of it, but like all of the allegations of misrepresentation or misinformation from our last president, right? People don't even know what to trust anymore.
Yeah.
People don't even know what to believe anymore.
People don't know where to get their real news anymore. You know, with paper media leaving society, and you rely more and more on not social media, but on internet news, shall we say? You know, how do you decipher which is accurate and which is not accurate? You know, how do you know you're going to a reliable source? You don't. You know, and so it's rampant out there.
There's another aspect to it where people I think fall prey to, I guess, their biases, right? That's what we look for in jury selection. People already have their biases, so if they see a video, they see something that matches what they're already thinking, boom, it's true.
It's true. Yeah, it must be true. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Because my big thing is like food and the stuff that goes in our food, and it really scares me, like some of the stuff that we eat. And you see a TikTok video about how this company's putting stuff in your food that you didn't know was in there, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm like, share.
You're part of the problem.
Right, but that's my point. Is I'm educated. I have a law degree, and biases affect even people, everybody.
Yeah, that is true. You know, one of the biggest problems that you find as a judge is that you've got to make a decision. There's two sides, and both sides can't win. You've got to decide one way or the other. And when you've got attorneys who don't show up on time, don't know who their clients are unfamiliar with the facts surrounding their case, come unprepared, didn't look at their file the night before, don't know what is set, and then they lose, they try to blame the system. But they need to look inside and say, okay, you know, if you show up, if you're playing football and you didn't practice all week and you didn't get the right cleats for the right of turf you have, and you don't have, you know, the right equipment, and you didn't practice all week and you didn't look at the playbook the night before, well, you're not going to perform on Friday Night Lights. You're just not, you know? And so when you don't prepare, when you don't practice, it's unfortunate. You're just not going to win on Friday night, and you're not going to win in court when you're in trial because, you know, you just didn't prepare. And you know, so I think sometimes people leave the courtroom dissatisfied, but I think a lot of times they need to look within and say, you know, could I have prepared better? You know, when I started practicing 30 years ago, I remember the likes of Hector Villarreal, Richard Smith, Cito Nava, and I can name a few others. And I remember them kicking my ass in court, you know, that's because they were more experienced than I was. Yeah. And after losing a few times, I just said, you know what? Every night I'd go read the rules, read the relevant cases, look at my file, talk to my client, because I got tired of losing and getting my ass kicked by these experienced, seasoned attorneys, you know?
Yeah.
And it just made me a better person, a better attorney, and my clients benefited from that. And so I think a lot of times attorneys need to go and just, you know, check themselves and say, hey, you know, have I looked at everything? Have I prepared, you know, whatever issues may come up? And granted, you don't always know the answer, but, you know, but you got to prepare if you want to have a chance at winning.
What advice would you give to young lawyers?
Or even the medium lawyers like us.
You know, it's hard to know what you don't know, you know, and I think the toughest thing for any lawyer is, especially when you're a solo practitioner and you've got people coming in to see you, is don't take on something you don't know what you're doing, because, you know, we have a license and you don't want to ever jeopardize your license. And you take on a case that's too big for you, never be afraid to work it with somebody. Never be afraid to refer your first one out and learn from somebody. Because if you don't know what you're doing, people say, well, I don't want to refer it because I'm going to lose my fee. Well, I'd rather you lose half your fee than all your license.
You as the lawyer should rather lose half your fee than lose your license.
Yeah, you give up half your fee, you're going to continue having a license.
And you learned. It's a cost of education.
Hopefully you learned. Yeah, that's the price you pay. Yeah. You know, and the next one you'll do on your own.
Yeah. But Judge, you're up for re-election, is that correct?
I'm up for re-election, guys, in 2024. You know, people have asked, you know, what have you done while you're on the bench? You know, we've got obviously, you know, that I'm the first guy to come back after COVID. I'm the first one to bring everybody back. The county court at law judges over the past 3 years have trusted me to lead them pre-COVID, through COVID, post-COVID. And so I'm the presiding judge for the county court laws. But I do a whole lot, and I don't get paid any extra for all this stuff that I'm going to tell you that I do. I'm the presiding judge for the past 3 years, which means that I have to deal with all the issues that come up with case assignments, case transfers, dealing with the county clerk, dealing with the district clerk, dealing with the county commissioner, dealing with the county judge. It's a lot of stuff that happens. So even when I'm not in the courtroom, I'm working on all that stuff. We run the DWI court program. Right. I started it with Ricardo Rodriguez, the former district attorney, carried on with Terry. That program is an awesome program. There's 100 participants in that program, and it's intended to provide rehab services, counseling services for individuals who either have their second DWI or an egregious first or just need services. And the probation department does a great job of supporting us. The district attorney's office does a great job of helping us. And the recidivism rate for these participants is less than 2%. And so this county, I don't know if everybody knows, we have 10,000 pending DWI misdemeanor cases. 7,500 of those are first time, 2,500 are second time. And so we're only taking a drop in the bucket that we're working with. And we meet, for example, every morning at 7 o'clock. On Wednesdays, we're there at the courthouse. We meet with them. And so that takes a lot of work in coordinating with the DA's office, probation, and everybody. And it's a great program.
This DWI program, Judge, it works like a pretrial diversion program,
They get
right?
a dismissal.
They get a dismissal if they complete everything that they're supposed to complete on the program.
Exactly, yes.
Right. So no DWI on your record, which if you have a DWI on your record is horrible. I mean, it hurts bad.
We've had attorneys, we've had nurses, we've had a doctor in there. We've had people from all walks of life, teachers, administrators that benefit from the program. And we help them keep their nursing license, their law license, whatever it is along the way. So it's a great program. It's a very successful program. And we've kept it at 100 strong. It dwindled during COVID a little bit, but it's at 100 strong, and it's a great program.
How long does that program last?
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah, so it's a year of
counseling, reporting to probation. They have an alcohol monitoring device. They blow 3 times a day. They have any violations, we sanction them progressively, whether it's a verbal admonishment, whether it's community service hours, whether it's a weekend in jail. But it's a great program.
Yeah. So for any listeners that are out there, the reason why I ask is it's not like they're getting off easy by any means for that dismissal. Not one bit.
No. You know, and what I try to impress on people is at the conclusion of the program is look, we don't expect everybody to stop drinking. But I tell every one of them, I bet you that you wish you had paid $50 for an Uber as opposed to spending the $5,000 or $15,000 you've spent.
It's not even $50.
Depends on where you're at. Yeah.
How far are you going?
But, the point is, there are other means. And, I think Uber and Lyft and those kind of services have helped diminish, but it's still a big problem.
Yeah. The problem is once you start drinking and you have your keys and you start to convince yourself that you don't need a lift. It's when you're sober that you're like, I should have a lift.
So we try to tell everybody, look, put yourself in a position, get a ride to where you're going, catch an Uber over there, that way you can't come back, And so we try to educate not only abstinence, but good decision making.
Right.
The presiding judge, we run the DWI court. I'm also in charge of the indigent defense. Before I talk about that, I'm also on the bail bond board. So on the bail bond board as the representative for the past 5 years for the county court at laws, we've worked to make a lot of changes. Attorneys can post bonds, but when an attorney posts an attorney bond for a person who's in jail, they're supposed to represent that individual. That wasn't happening. We cleaned that up. There are some bonding companies that weren't doing their job correctly. They're no longer licensed. And so we run a tight ship, and we've changed the rules. And so I'm involved with the bail bond industry. They've all endorsed me because of the job I've done to clean up. And in that regards, I work with Laura Hinojosa, the district clerk, again, with Arturo Guajardo, with Israel Ramon. We work closely with the sheriff's department because the bail bond board, of course, is the bail bondsman in the bail bond industry. And so we're very involved in that capacity as well. That's time consuming. Again, I don't get paid for that, but it needs to be done, and it's good for the community and it's good for everybody.
Right.
And then one of the last things that I do is I'm in charge of indigent defense. Indigent defense is responsible for providing court-appointed attorneys to everybody. So there's got to be a time in which it happens. Somebody goes to jail, they ask for an attorney. We got to appoint an attorney within 24 hours. We ensure that the attorney goes and visits them within 48 hours so that they're not just sitting in jail, so their case is moving. We make sure that the appointment is from a qualified attorney. So if it's a capital murder, it's somebody from the capital murder wheel, whatever the case is. And so in that regard, during COVID, it was a very tough assignment because you'll remember everything went online and everything, you guys started visiting clients in jail online as opposed to going to the jail because everything was closed. The good thing about, a lot of good things came out of COVID. One of the good things came out is that now I don't know if you guys do it or not, but you can set up an appointment and visit your client from right here via video at the jail.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that came out of COVID through indigent defense.
But let me ask you. I mean, you look pretty fit. How do you find time to work out?
Being a migrant farm worker and having been in the military, you wake up early all the time. So when I wake up, people ask you go to the gym. What do you do, guys? Like, okay, guys, like yesterday morning, I woke up. It was 4:30. There's a spin class at 5:30. So what do? I go to spin at 5:30. Get done by 6:30. I'm at DWI court by 7 o'clock, guys. Of course, I'm taking a nap at 4, but you know.
We better like hurry up and close out this podcast because it might be close to Judge Valdez's like bedtime.
That's what my wife. I'm a 4:30 a.m. guy too, Judge, and that's my wife's biggest complaint. It's like, you eat dinner, you go to sleep. Yeah, I gotta get up at 4:30. Judge, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think this is one of the longest podcasts.
This one's pretty long.
It's a good one. And Judge Valdez, you're on the ballot for 2024, and you certainly have my vote. Yeah,
I appreciate it. Hopefully, I have your vote and your endorsement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, I appreciate the vote. Appreciate the endorsement. It's great being here, guys.
Yeah, likewise.
I don't know if we're qualified to endorse, but okay.
I don't think are you sure you want that?
Are you sure? Okay. No, Judge, thank you so much. A ton of fun, and we'd love to have you back.